What if Deku joined Team JPDE? Chapter 45. A Not So Lazy Sunday. Jack was currently in bed. She was a dripping mess from her, and Izuku's bedroom activates. Izuku was currently fast asleep on the other side of the bed. Fuck me. That was amazing. I've never felt this way before, and I want more. But how on Remnant am I going to explain this to the others? I guess they may understand, and Evelyn would probably be in favor, the pervert Jack said. A realization then dawned on Jack. Wait, where even are we? This isn't our dorm room. I don't remember coming here, and why was I in a maid outfit? Jack asked. Everything then began to melt around Jack. Huh? What going on? Izuku, Jack asked. Jack saw that Izuku was also melting away. Then she began to fall before then floating in a void. Ah. I must be dreaming. That's good, Jack said. No, it isn't. I just had a wet dream about Izuku. And I enjoyed myself. Do I really like Izuku in that way? Jack asked. Jack then saw several lights in the distance. As she walked towards it, she noticed that most of her body covered in a black void. As she got closer, she saw Izuku, covered in the same void as her, but more of his body was visible. She then saw several people next to Izuku, one being a beautiful woman that she found very attractive. They all had a tough expression on their faces. Jack then realized that these people must be the vestiges of One for All, but she didn't understand why she was seeing them. Come with me, a void said. The vestiges then disappeared. Jack turned to see two people. The one closest to her was on one knee, whilst the other stood tall. Dear, foolish little brother. Why do you resist me? The man standing asked. Jack came to the realization that man was all for one, and that the man on the ground was Yuki Shigaraki. Because I can't allow you to do what you want to do, big brother, Yuki said. That's a mean thing to say. I'm trying to compromise with you. But let me guess, tolerance is not part of your rigid sense of justice, all for one said. The world is falling apart right now, it's in utter chaos, but meta powers shouldn't be used to further self-interest. You're only thinking about how you can fulfill your own desires, Yuki said. Come, all for one said. Two men then appeared. One of them had a jaw with giant sharp teeth poking out. He looked very much like a faunus. The other man appeared to be a normal human. This man's jaw was transformed. Those wretched fangs simply won't stop growing. He's a kind-hearted man who takes care of his elderly parents. But he was persecuted. Called sick and a monster. Even his parents have abandoned him. This man has no abilities. On his way home from work one evening, he was attacked by a gang of meters. His stun gun was rendered useless, and the tentacle-like hair of an assailant held him down as he was beaten, all for one said. Jack felt bad for the two men. This was just like the racial divide between humans and faunus. All for one then approached the two. No, don't. There's no turning back, Yuki said, before coughing. Please help me, the quirked man said. Just do it, the quirkless man said. All for one then placed his hands on their heads. The quirked man's quirk was then removed whilst the quirkless man was given a quirk. If I'm ever in need, will you lend me your aid, all for one asked. Yes, of course I will. I can go home. Thank you, the now quirkless man said. I'll help, too. I'm forever in your debt after this gift, the now quirked man said. Is this the world you call chaotic? It doesn't seem so to me, brother. I saw two people in need and helped both of them using my ability, all for one said. I'm no fool. You don't care about them, you're just adding lackeys to your collection, Yuki said. I do need people I can trust and depend on. For someone so concerned with righteousness, though, why do you ignore the joy my power brings them? The concept of humanity is broken in this world. I can use my power to restore a sense of order. So which one of us is actually indulging in self-interest, would you say? One for all asked. What kind of order is it if you're taking advantage of people? Do you even remember how many innocents you've toyed with before you abandoned them? Yuki said. Yuki was then tackled to the ground, by one of All for One's bodyguards. You'll lose your tongue before you insult him again, the bodyguard said. Ah. Do try to be careful. My little brother has a weak constitution. Poor thing, born without any meta abilities. Without power, you can't hope to achieve anything. You're a pitiful hypocrite, but I still love you. I hope you know that. You are my only family. I will give you everything you want if you agree to join me. You have my word. Choice to those without power. Mercy to those who have sinned. All for One said. Yuki was now in a small room. You've stopped eating again. You're disintegrating into nothing, All for One said. Brother. I refuse to become the man you want me to be, Yuki said. But you should have been there. You should have seen them fall. All of them. They let their powers go to waste. Formed factions. Rose against me. That's why they had to be killed. But it wasn't by my hand that they lost their lives. My multitude of adoring friends took it upon themselves to spite the wicked and act on my behalf. I couldn't be more thrilled. The suggestion of a desire and people act for me. A fantasy comes to life. It's like the world from the comic we read together back when we were young, All for One said. Except you gave up and only read through volume 3. You missed the end. The Demon King ruled that fictional land, but a hero of justice struggled against him despite the horrible odds and saved the world. Don't you know? The villain always loses in the end, Yuki said. Dreams have become reality. And reality doesn't follow stock plots. I believe it's time you finally bend to my cause. I'll rewrite your story as well. Because you are dear to me, brother, All for One said. Let me go, Yuki yelled. I've found a meta power for you. Even your pathetic body can utilize it. You will join me. Please, brother, All for One said, placing his hand on Yuki. Jack reached her hand out towards Yuki. You're Jack, right? Welcome to the family. I wanted to show you more, but you don't have enough control. I'll give you the same warning I gave Izuku. We're long past the singularity point. But don't be afraid. You are not alone, Yuki said, as the other users then appeared behind him. Jack then woke up. She found herself starting to float from her bed. No, no. Let me down please, Jack said. Jack then began to float back down towards the bed before gravity took hold of her again. So. That was how One for All was created. And what was that thing about the singularity point, Jack asked. Jack looked to Izuku's bed, but saw that the curtains were drawn. Jack see something through the curtain, but she couldn't tell what. Anyway, Izuku was still in a coma, so she couldn't ask him any questions. Jack decided to just go back to sleep. She can ask Izuku any questions she had when he woke up, especially that beautiful woman. A few minutes ago, Amber had decided to visit Izuku. While he may be unconscious, that wouldn't stop her from giving Izuku sweet dreams. She entered the infirmary to see something she would have never thought she'd see. Seal was giving Izuku a blowjob. It seems that Izuku was having a wet dream, and so Seal decided to help out. Seeing this gave Amber an idea on the dream she was going to give Izuku. Sunday. Day 126. A little warning would have been appreciated. You three sure have a lot of energy, despite Titania said. Sorry, we just got so used Jack using earplugs that David said. I bet she's enjoying her convalescence, being able to sleep without worrying about frisky roommates, Evelyn said. Unless you decide to visit Izuku at night, Titania said. Evelyn's face fell. I guess the desire for closure made us reduce awareness of our surroundings. Sorry, Penny said. How did you forget about me? I was in the bed right next to you guys, Titania said. Well, you seemed to forget us later in the night as you, Penny said. It's fine. It's fine. I just didn't think you were already at the point where, Titania said. It's a recent development. One that Deku got a preview of a few weeks ago. Anyway, moving on. Plans for the day, Team David said. Titania was surprised. What's wrong, David asked. I'm part of the team, now, Titania asked. Of course you are. After what we went through, David said. Cool. Anyway, I think I'll track the magical duo and spend some time with them, Titania said. In that case, I think I'll join you, Evelyn said. Want to give a round of thanks, David asked. There's that, yes. But there's also something I need to talk with Janara about. Something I've seen while using my old semblance on her, Evelyn said. Sounds important. What exactly did you see, Evelyn, Penny asked. It could be really personal, so I'd prefer not to talk about it with anyone else but her, for now, Evelyn said. Meanwhile in Vale. Your ice cream's melting, Thilla said. I can fix it later, Bella said. That's a waste of aura, Thilla said. Better than using it on that Smarmaster's orders, Bella said. Is that a fusion of Smarm and Smart Ace, Thilla asked. Yeah, Bella said. Quite fitting. I like it, Thilla said. Oh. Then I shall continue using it. Too bad I couldn't find a way to include Monster in it, too. After what he did to Bella said. Janara, Thilla asked. That was her name, yes. Poor girl, she's even younger than you, and yet, Bella said. Not what I. Come here, Thilla said. Ah. Hey, Bella said, as Thilla picked her up. Thanks, Mr. Janara said. You're welcome, sweetheart. Now have a nice day, a Vale citizen said. Interacting with people is easier than I thought it'd be, Janara said. People in this world are used to people looking a bit queer because of 4 nuas. By comparison to some of them, you're not that alien looking. As long as you avoid floating, Amber said. And what about the fact that I'm talking to myself? I'm sure at least someone must have noticed, Janara said. You're a young girl. Kids are expected to do silly stuff like that, have an imaginary friend or two, act like an adult when not interacting with others. Also, you're adorable. That's a big weapon, Amber said. I guess it is. Not that I'm complaining too much. Humans have a lot of cool stuff. Especially sweets, Janara said. Makes you wish you had some around in peak, Amber asked. Let's not get crazy, now, Janara said. Thilla and Bella were watching Janara from the cafe. She's talking to herself, Bella asked. No. She's talking to that ghost girl that's been hanging around them, Thilla said. But I thought she had to make herself visible to have herself be heard by others, Bella said. If I had to take a guess, Janara can talk and see her whenever she wants because she's a magic user, Thilla said. Thilla, can you let me go, already, Bella asked. No, Thilla said. I swear I'm over the head pat thing. It didn't really happen, anyway, Bella said. There you are. Hi, Janara, Titania said. Titania and Evelyn had now arrived. Evelyn. You're different, Janara said. Well, her and eyes changed on their own, so I decided, what the hell, Evelyn said. It looks good on you. And I'm happy to see you again, Janara said. So, what have the two of you been up to, Titania asked. Oh, right, she can't. Without appearing. Silly me, Titania said. Well, we should move this somewhere more private, considering, Evelyn said. Considering what, Amber asked. Yeah, considering what, Janara asked. I was trying to tell you something before I left Peak, remember? And now that I think about it. This may actually involve you as well, Titania Evelyn said. Sounds very private, Thilla said. Yes. We should eavesdrop, Bella said. I agree. Either it's something Weser already knows, Thilla said. Or it's something that he may potentially use against them. Either way. I'm tired of him getting his way. I'm tired of him getting his way, Bella said. Up in the lab ship. Doesn't seem like there's going to be any long-term negative effects, Miss Ivory Peach said. We managed to set your bones properly before Aura started healing the injuries. There's going to be no need for further surgery, Enrico said. That's good. Izuku has told me that going beyond the limit too many times could lead to loss of function in limbs. So all I need is rest, I guess, Jack said. Think you can manage that in the infirmary bed? You're well enough to move to your dormitory, now, Peach said. Considering how all over each other those three should be, at the moment, going to my apartment would be completely counterproductive to my healing. I'll stay right here, thank you very much, Jack said. I agree with your reasoning, Peach laughed. All over each other, Enrico asked. We will leave you to your rest, then. Come on, Professor Peach said. That means Penny and Miss Damerot, Enrico said. Oh. You didn't know, Peach asked. She's growing up fast, I guess, Enrico said. What do you think she was doing with Izuku and Evelyn the week she asked about removing her plug suit, Jack asked. She did not mention that Miss Damerot was involved, Enrico said. Enrico then left the room. He probably didn't inquire much about Penny's love life, especially after learning she had 2 boyfriends, Jack said. I guess I should have a talk with him. Seal, mind taking care of the data before you leave, Peach asked. Not at all, Professor Peach, Seal said. Good afternoon, Miss Ivory Peach said. Peach then left the infirmary. I don't think I've had a chance to thank you, Seal, Jack said. No thanks necessary. It wasn't a personal favor I bestowed upon you. It was only the most logical course of action, Seal said. I'm not talking about the mission. I'm talking about the pep talk you gave David. Well, more like a talking down to. Still thanks, Jack said. I feel like I've overstepped my boundaries a little, Seal said. Maybe a bit, but still, thank you. None of my teammates are people who would feel happy about having someone dying for them. Especially because of a situation brought on by their own choices, Jack said. I figured. Still, I don't think I'm familiar enough with David to warrant that kind of conversation, Seal said. Probably. But you didn't do it because it was a logical thing to do, did you? It was a touchy subject, I guess, Jack said. Please do not pry further, Seal said. I won't. I just wanted to say thanks. And I know David appreciates you as well. Anyway, to change the subject, how's Izuku doing, Jack asked. He's doing very well considering the injuries he sustained, Seal said. I guess having all those extra aura pools really helps, Jack said. Yes. Though it appears that having multiple aura pools doesn't help increase the speed of healing. Izuku should have been fully healed if that was the case, Seal said. Finally. Something that doesn't make him overpowered, Jack said. That's if you manage to deplete his aura supply, Seal said. That's true. So, when do you think he'll wake up, Jack asked. Hard to say. He should have woken up by now. I don't know why he hasn't, Seal said. Probably a one-for-all thing. That power seems to have a mind of its own. Like last night, I had a dream, and I was the origins of one-for-all and some of the past users. Izuku had told us he had a dream exactly like what I did, Jack said. Was that before or after your wet dream, Seal asked. Jack's face then went as red as Ruby's cape. What are you talking about, Jack asked. Oh, please. You can't lie to me. I came in to check up on you two during the night. I noticed that there was a wet spot in your bed. I assumed you didn't wet yourself, and your reaction just confirmed it. I then changed your bed sheets as well as Izuku's seal said. Wait, Izuku had a wet dream too, Jack asked. Indeed. When I went to check up on him, I saw. Well. You know what I mean. And so I took care of it, seal said. You took care of his erection, Jack asked. What? No. I mean the sheets, seal said, her face going red. Seal then sneezed. I'm only messing with you, Jack said. The calibrations are done. Please excuse me, Seal said. Seal then left the room. Jack chuckled before closing her eyes. Back at Beacon, David had been summoned to Ozpin's office. Come on in, Mr. Dik Begis, Ozpin said. Headmaster David said. A short while ago, David and Penny were in their dormitory kitchen. Sorry for intruding, children, Glinda said, entering the kitchen. Miss Goodwitch. We didn't hear you come in, Penny said. Guess we were a bit too taken by cooking. How are you, David asked. I'm fine. Mr. Dik Begis, the headmaster would like to see you, Glinda said. Me? Just me, David asked. Yes, Glinda said. Are you sure, Penny asked. He specifically asked for the leader of Team JPDE, Glinda said. I see, David said. Back to the present. I would have our report on the rescue mission in the Barito Forest, Ozpin said. Of course, Headmaster. We dropped into the Barito Forest, David said, beginning to give the report on what happened. And that was it. Further details about the final part of the operation will have to be asked of other participants, for I was unconscious at the time, David said. Yes, you were unconscious after saving Miss Damerot, Ozpin said. Yes, David said. You haven't shared many details as to how that came to be, though, Mr. Dik Begis, Ozpin said. There's not much to tell. I almost died, but I managed to get through to her, David said. Get through to her, Ozpin said. Yes, David said. I find that difficult to believe, Mr. Dik Begis, Ozpin said. Excuse me, David asked. I was notified by General Ironwood about Miss Damerot's situation. She's one of my subordinates, as you may remember, so I was entitled to the full explanation. Her problem was a degeneration in her aura structure and consequently all her other functions. She wasn't simply possessed, it wasn't a matter of fighting for control with someone else. She was a captive in her own body. And at the rate of her degeneration was going, without specific equipment. There was no way to help her in a situation such as the one that you described. Except one. Which has, so far, been known as a complete impossibility, Ozpin said. Guess the cat is out of the bag, David said. So? Your semblance allows you to share your aura with others, Ozpin said. Not only that. It also allows me to copy their semblances, so to speak, David said. A powerful ability, Ozpin said. Not in full. Just a lesser version of them, but still. That's what it does, David said. And nothing else, Ozpin asked. It has 3 stages. I don't know what the third one does, yet. Your guess is as good as mine, David said. I see. And this insight was provided to you by your friar, guest, Ozpin said. Yes. Before you offer, I'm not working for you, David said. I wasn't going to, Mr. Dik Begis. My roster is currently full, Ozpin said. So Evelyn is still in it, David asked. You think so little of me, Mr. Dik Begis, Ozpin said. Honestly. I don't know what to think of you, Headmaster David said. Ozpin said. Most of the actions you've taken towards us have been antagonistic. People seem to equal parts dislike you and respect you. They may not always agree with your methods, but it seems that they value your reasons enough to trust you anyway, once they are known to them, David said. An excellent summary, Ozpin said. I can't say I would agree with certain actions or decisions even if I knew about such reasons, but why not share it with us? With others, David asked. Because it's more important than me finding allies, Mr. Dik. It's keeping certain truths a secret from the general populace. It actually works the other way around, Mr. Dik. I have to trust people for them to partake of this knowledge. I don't share it willy-nilly so that they trust me, Ozpin said. And keeping these secrets is more important than someone's life, David asked. If it comes down to making that kind of choice. Yes. Because revealing the truth would cause an even more massive loss of life, Ozpin said. Why are you telling me all this, David asked. Because your and Mr. Midoriya's presence in this school, Mr. Dik, has affected my collaborators, Ozpin said. You're including Deku, David said. Yes. Since the two of you arrived, things have been changing. Starting with your teammates. Miss Ivory and Miss Damarot had never been anything but excellent in their service, Ozpin said. Headmaster, they started doubting you because of things you had hidden from them coming to light. Me or Deku didn't play nearly as big a part as you'd like to believe, David said. But it was the presence of you two that caused the individuals that could unveil those truths to gather to Veil, Ozpin said. Those individuals are only in Veil because of me. Deku had not part in that. Because they are after my life, Professor Ozpin. This is not something I did willingly, David said. Obviously. But they were only exposed to it because of their ties to you, Mr. Dik. And while Mr. Midoriya had no part in that, his presence and in turn you and the rest of your team have started affecting others or having others gravitate to you, further sharing into your ties, Ozpin said. Again, Headmaster. Me and Deku have been doing nothing to directly oppose you, David said. I know, Mr. Dik. You and Mr. Midoriya have only been doing what you think and feel is best, but the reality is that as well-intentioned as those actions may be, they more often than not end up being in contrast with what I want, if not downright damaging to my own cause. The ties you two have built with the people around you in such a short period of time are so strong that you'd willingly risk your lives for each other. But more importantly, you give no regards to anything else in the service of that goal. Am I correct, Ozpin asked. Yes, David said. You didn't hesitate, Ozpin said. What is there to hesitate about such a question, David asked. So, no matter the long-term ramifications of any actions you might take, you'd still do it if it's to save someone you care about, Ozpin asked. Exact, David said. No matter the consequences. Even if they may come to affect the world around you, the very same world you live in, Ozpin asked. Any consequences, I will deal with as they come. Being afraid of what may come is not a valid reason for me to not try everything I can to help someone I love. The same can be said of Deku. He would do anything to save someone, even someone he hates. That's just who he is. But for me, you speak of the world, but to me they are my entire world, David said. They are your world, Ozpin said. I have no memory of Remnant from before I woke up. I didn't grow up knowing it. I have no parents, no aspirations for the future or dreams, no ambitions. I'm not a complete person at all. Right now, it feels like I'm just a passenger in my own life, going with the flow of everything that happens to me and playing catch up with the rest of the world. It's like I'm some kind of generic character in a story, made it so the readers can more easily put themselves in my shoes. The only thing that gives my life meaning, right now. What started my life in the first place? It's Penny and the others, David said. I see. I once knew someone like you, Mr. Dik, Ozpin said. Someone like me, David asked. Someone whose entire life was their loved ones and who, out of love and devotion, went to unheard of extremes. They ended up damning themselves and everything around them. Twice, Ozpin said. I see, David said. I see that you have your convictions, Mr. Dik. That, paired with your unusual circumstances, forces me to now start considering you a liability. Mr. Midoriya as well. And as such, at the end of the scholastic year, at the conclusion of the Vital tournament, you two will be expelled from Beacon Academy, Ozpin said. What about the others? David asked. Miss Polendina will go back to Atlas with General Ironwood and her father. And as for Miss Damarot and Miss Ivory, it will depend on them, but in any case, their attendance of Beacon Academy will also come to an end, Ozpin said. I see, David said. I'm sorry it had to come to this, Mr. Diakubgegis, Ozpin said. I guess this conversation is over, David said. Not quite yet. If you please, a question, Ozpin said. What is it? David asked. The young witch, I guess we could call her Janara, right? Ozpin asked. What about her? David asked. How would you describe her? Ozpin asked. I'm sorry, David asked. As a person. What is she like? Ozpin asked. She's a bit bratty, I guess. And she has a tendency to, when faced with a wall, to just hit it harder. Not exactly a people person. But ultimately, she's a good kid. She went out of her way to help us, literally crossed half of the kingdom to reach us. All because she felt she owed us something. She's got honor, David said. I see. Thank you for your time, Mr. Diakubgegis. You may leave, Ozpin said. Good evening, Headmaster, David said. David then left Ozpin's office. At the Bullhead Landing. You're going back so soon? Titania asked. I need time to think. Also, if what Evelyn said is true. Maybe there's some hints in the city, Janara said. I see, Titania said. You should come too, Janara said. Titania said. What do you mean now? Janara asked. Even if I discover anything, what would it accomplish? I was already dealing with supposedly being someone else, but with tits. No, focusing on these kinds of matters doesn't help anyone. It's not like I can go back. I think the best course of action for me, right now, is to just focus on becoming my own person. You've had time aplenty to do that, I haven't, Titania said. I see. I'll be sure to contact you the moment I find something, Janara said. Yeah, about that. How exactly are you going to do that? Titania asked. I don't know, Janara said, her face going red. Nishishi, I knew it. Here, Titania said. Titania then threw something at Janara. Don't throw things at people all of a sudden. Wait. This is one of those scroll things, Janara asked. Yup. Peak has reception, and thanks to your render care, it still has a functioning power grid, Titania said. Thanks, Titania, Janara said. Don't mention it. Think of it as a birthday present from Big Sister, Titania said. Janara sighed. I'm going to let you have this. Big Sister, Janara said. Really? Titania asked. Yeah. It's a great present. Thank you. Even if I doubt you bought it with your own money, Janara said. Titania blushed. Ciao, Janara said. But before Janara could take off, Titania got a call on her scroll. It's Mom. Wonder what she wants at this hour, Titania asked. Hello Mom, what is it? Titania asked, answering her scroll. Hello Titania, Izuku said. Izuku, Titania yelled. Meanwhile, David had told Evelyn and Penny what happened with Ozpin. Well. Talk about a lazy Sunday, how Evelyn said. This isn't fair, Penny said. It was going to happen sooner or later, Penny. This is his school, after all, David said. I don't want to be separated from you. None of you. I won't, Penny said. Like we're going to let that happen. Penny, calm down. We're going to deal with this, David said. But how? Penny asked. For the same reason why Ozpin didn't just immediately expel me from Beacon. First, there are loopholes in the rules he himself created and observes. And second, we have allies, remember David said. Evelyn and Penny smiled. Then Evelyn got a call from Professor Peach. Professor Peach. What is it? Evelyn asked. Hello Evelyn, Izuku said. Izuku, Evelyn cried. Up in Ozpin's office. I won't accept this, Ozpin, Glinda said. I see you saw the slip. Your compliance isn't really a factor, Glinda. As headmaster, I can't expel students based on disciplinary sanctions without your approval. But at the end of the year it is in my right to let go ones that haven't shown sufficient prowess in their studies, Ozpin said. So you're going to use their lack of grades from the first semester, Glinda said. I will, Ozpin said. Do you have any idea what you're doing, Ozpin, Glinda asked. I'm addressing liabilities in my own school, Glinda, Ozpin said. So the great headmaster Ozpin is going this far against two teens who only want to defend themselves and their friends, Glinda asked. Their intentions notwithstanding, there's enough on our plate as it is, Glinda, Ozpin said. And when is the plate going to be anything but full, Ozpin? Because while stopping Salem may be important, the rest of Remnant keeps turning, Glinda said. There will be no Remnant to turn to if she gets her way, Ozpin said. And if we ignore everything else going on around us, there will be no one left to turn with it. The Grimm. The Schnee Company. Bandits. The White Fang. And now, Peak. How many things must pile up before we decide that Salem isn't the current biggest threat to life on Remnant, Ozpin, Glinda asked. There will never be a bigger threat to Remnant than her, Glinda, Ozpin said. So we're at an impasse, Glinda said. As I was with Mr. Dik Begis, yes, Ozpin said. I shall act consequently, then, Glinda said. Glinda then left Ozpin's office. Never a bigger threat, Ozpin said. David, Penny, Titania and Janara all burst into the infirmary. Izuku, they all yelled. Hey guys, Deku said. They all then hugged Deku. Wow, really? Where was my hugs when I woke up? Jack asked. Oh, sorry Jack. It's just that, Penny said. Penny, she's messing with you, Deku said. Oh, Penny said, a bit embarrassed. How are you feeling? Titania asked. As good as can be expected considering my situation, Deku said. Midoriya still has a lot of healing to do, but he should be all healed up soon, Peach said. That's good to hear, Janara said. So, what's been happening? Deku asked. Quite a lot considering this was supposed to be a lazy day, David said. What happened? Jack asked. Well, first, me and Deku are going to be expelled from Beacon, David said. What? But Ozpin can't do that. Glinda is the only one who could expel you two, and she would never, Peach said. She hasn't. We're being expelled at the end of the year to exploit a loophole, David said. I see, Peach said. Well, where are we gonna live? Deku asked. We could go live at my house. I'm sure my mother would allow us all to stay, Jack said. You're both unfussed by this? Penny asked. Well, there's not much we can do. It's his school and rules. Anyway, why does it matter? We're not a team because of Beacon. We're a team because of each other. Expelling us wouldn't do anything to that, Deku said. That is true, but also we have allies in the school faculty, David said. Indeed, I'm sure me and Miss Goodwixt will find a workaround, Peach said. Is there anything else? Jack asked. Well, yes, Evelyn saw something when using her semblance, but it's something me and Titania want to keep to ourselves, Janara said. I see. Speaking of Evelyn, where is she? Deku asked. It was only then that they realized that Evelyn was not in the room. Penny left the infirmary and found Evelyn just outside. Evelyn. Izuku wants to see you, Penny said. Evelyn remained silent. Evelyn, please come in, Penny said. I can't, Evelyn said. Yes you can, Penny said. No I can't. How can I look at him? I hurt him. I caused all of this to happen. It's all my fault, Evelyn cried. Evelyn, Izuku doesn't blame you for what happened, Penny said. Well, Izuku should, Evelyn cried. Penny then picked Evelyn up. Penny. What are you doing? Let me go, Evelyn said. No, Penny said. Penny then brought Evelyn to the infirmary. Penny, please put me down, Evelyn said. Penny then put Evelyn down, right in front of Izuku's bed. Hey, Evelyn, Deku said. Izuku, Evelyn said, her eyes welling up. I'm sorry, Evelyn cried, running up and hugging Deku. Evelyn then began to speak, but her words were incoherent. It's okay my little bun, I'm fine, Deku said. Evelyn continued to cry. Evelyn then noticed that Deku was staring at her. What? What are you staring at? Evelyn asked. Sorry. Jack told me your hair returned to its original white color, but I didn't expect you to look so much like Mirko, Deku said. Who's Mirko? Evelyn asked. She's the rabbit hero. She has long white hair, with long ears, a fluffy tail, and dark skin with a defined muscular body. Basically, she's you and Jack combined. Well then. I know what we're gonna do once you get out of here, Evelyn said. Oh no, Deku said. But first. I want snuggles, Evelyn said. Evelyn then climbed in Deku's bed and closed her eye. I think you should follow Miss Damarot's lead. You have school tomorrow, Peach said. But what about what Evelyn saw? Jack asked. It's something they want to keep to themselves until they have answers, but I assure you it won't provide any advantage or reveal anything new about our enemy, Amber said, appearing before them. Very well. I'll trust your word, Jack said. We should get going. Titania, you're still welcome to stay in our room, and you are as well, Janara, David said. Thanks, but I'm going to head back to Peak now. I've been away for too long, Janara said. Hold on, Janara, before you go, I need your help, Deku said. With what? Janara asked. It's a secret, so come close, Deku said. Janara did so and Deku whispered in her ear. Is that doable? Deku said. Of course. I owe you for saving my life, and now that I have a scroll, Penny's father can just send the schematics, Janara said. Wait. When did you get a scroll? Peach said. Titania gave me one just before you called, Janara said. Really? Titania. How did you afford to buy a scroll? Peach asked. Goodbye, Titania said, quickly leaving the infirmary. You get back here, young Miss, Peach said, chasing after Titania. I'm gonna go before I'm dragged into her wrath, Janara said. Janara then left for Peak. Come on, Penny, let's go too. Bye everyone, David said. Bye, Penny said. David and Penny then left. Amber, mind giving me a more in-depth report? Jack asked. Of course, Amber said. I'm going to sleep, Deku said. Very well, Jack said. Okay, good night. And have sweet dreams, Amber said. I will, and have been thanks to you, Deku said. Deku closed his eyes as Amber blushed. What was that about? Jack asked. Oh, nothing, Amber said. After giving a more in-depth report, Amber said her goodbye, left the infirmary. As she walked through the ship's hallway, she began to feel strange. What? What is? Amber asked. Amber then began to disappear. It hurts. No. David, Amber called. Amber had now fully disappeared. End of chapter 45.